Hello, and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Matt Dietrich, and if you followed Illinois politics for any time in, say, the past 45 years, you no doubt are familiar with the name Michael J. Madigan. He's served in the Illinois General Assembly since 1971, and for all but 2 years since 1983, he's been Speaker of the House. Today, he's also chairman of the Illinois Democratic Party. He's widely regarded as the most powerful politician in the state. Joining me today via Skype is a Chicagoan who is not intimidated by Madigan's power and reputation. Jason Gonzales is challenging Mike Madigan for the Democratic nomination in the 22nd House District in the March 15th, 2016 Democratic primary. Jason, welcome to Only in Illinois, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Matt.
Let me start out with, I'm sure this is a question you've heard before. As I said in my introduction, Madigan is regarded as the most powerful politician. He's chairman of the Democratic Party. He's got a very large campaign fund. I think it's about $1.6 million now. Why did you choose this as your first foray into politics?
Well, I care a lot about my state, and I feel that, it's time for change. It's time for someone to actually challenge Speaker Madigan in a district that I'm quite familiar with because, I grew up in the area and, I'm committed to solving problems. I think we need more good people in politics that, are going to go to Springfield to solve problems rather than promote the status quo.
Now, Speaker Madigan this year is deadlocked with Governor Rauner over the state budget. And he's kind of been a sort of controversial figure, and some people see him as being an obstruction to reform. Governor Rauner certainly feels that way. He's been in power for a long time. What are you hearing from people in his district as you go door to door?
Well, people want change, Matt. Mr. Madigan has been in power now for almost 45 years. He really hasn't had a real credible challenger in probably 15 to 20 years. People are just really tired about the direction of the state, where things are going. People are moving out of Illinois saying, if things don't change, I'm going to take my family and move them to Indiana or Wisconsin. People understand that we can't keep going like this, that we have to have some real solutions to the challenges that are facing the state. And, all of the feedback that I've been receiving from people in my district is that they're ready for change. They want someone who's going to go and work for them, for the interests of the district, and to get our state moving again.
Okay, now, generally in primary elections, Speaker Madigan hasn't had too many challengers. In 2012, he did have 3 other challengers, and he won that race pretty handily. What makes you think it could be different for you this time?
Well, in studying the campaign of Mrs. Pizer, I believe is who you're referring to, back in 2012, it's sort of my opinion that she wasn't a great campaigner. She wasn't really utilizing a campaign team. I believe it was her family who was running the campaign, and I believe that she made some fundamental mistakes as well in her candidacy. So I would say that knowing the mistakes of the past, I certainly hope not to repeat them. But really, I have a story, and I want to connect with people, and I have a vision for our district that I believe no other candidate has had. I also believe that people see me as someone who's going to bring and help bring about the change and reform that we need in our district and also in the state. And, I have qualifications that some of the last candidates didn't have. I have 2 master's degrees, one from MIT, another one from Harvard. I went to Duke as an undergraduate. I've studied and collaborated with some of the smartest people in the world to solve some of the biggest problems in the world. So I think that along with my background, having grown up in the area, and having spent a great deal of time in the area and listening to my constituents gives me a very unique skill set and experience that maybe Ms. Pizer and others who may have tried to challenge Mr. Madigan in the past didn't have.
Okay. And we had talked earlier, and you had mentioned that because this is a primary and because turnout is so low, that might give you an advantage, or that will work in your favor.
Well, I think, what we really have going on here, Matt, is, we've got about 47,000 voters in the district that are registered. And usually about 13,000 of those registered voters show up in the primary. People now are wondering, sort of what's going to change, and when are we going to have change? And I think there's a lot of voters that are saying that, look, Mr. Madigan has had his opportunity to turn the state around, to help solve the problems, but in fact, he's actually created deeper problems for our state. So I think that there's many people, and a sufficient amount of people, that are ready for change, that are willing to vote for somebody new, that are willing to come out in the primary, providing that we can get them out. As you know, in Illinois, in many districts in the primaries, they have suffered from record low turnout. And in fact, the 22nd district is one of the lowest turnout districts of Illinois. But with good campaigning, with a good message, and a good, credible candidate such as myself, I believe people now have a real reason to come out and vote in the primary and to vote Mr. Madigan out.
Okay, and right now we're in the midst of a budget standoff between Speaker Madigan and Governor Rauner, and really it's come down to one big issue where there's a fundamental difference of opinion between Governor Rauner and Speaker Madigan, and that has to do with unions. And can you talk a little bit about Governor Rauner has said that he thinks public employee unions are a corrupting influence on government. Speaker Madigan has taken the opposite view. Where do you fall on the question of labor and its role in government?
Well, let me preface the question by first saying that I grew up in a family where my father worked in the labor union. He was an IBEW electrician. He provided for a middle-class lifestyle for my family. We had health care. My father had days off where he could spend with our family and do things with us. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that my father, having been in a union, I don't know if I would be able to, have had a leg up in getting a good education and getting, sort of ahead in life. So I think that, unions now, and even also historically, have played a very large role in the advancement of the middle class. I really believe that, Governor Rauner and Speaker Madigan have to find a middle road here. I believe unions make a fundamental contribution to our state in helping to maintain the middle class. I think we also have to recognize that a lot of the middle class is going away. And unions may be that only last saving institution that will help to save the middle class. So, I think also as someone who's been in the labor union myself, I worked in the Service Employees International Union as I was a student at Harvard and paid my tuition working in that union. I am very much, for unions. I believe in the right of people to collectively bargain. But I also think that we need to think about how we can help people downstate. We know that poverty is an issue. We know that development is an issue. We know that many of the projects in the downstate areas may not be able to support union wages. They may not be able to support, the types of costs that are associated with unions. I think we need to look at that, and we need to try and find a middle road. I don't believe that Speaker Madigan is negotiating effectively with Bruce Rauner on this issue. I don't think that Speaker Madigan is really negotiating at all. He seems to be the one who is, not wanting to come to the table and create a path so that we can, find a win-win solution for unions, for families, and for our state. and for businesses.
Okay, sort of the crux of the budget standoff has been Madigan says that Governor Rauner is trying to bring in what he calls non-budget issues into the talks, and that's workers' compensation, collective bargaining, things like that. Do you think those issues should have a place in the budget, or should they be working strictly on budget-focused issues the way Speaker Madigan says?
Well, I always believe in any big negotiation, there's give and take. And I think, if we look in the history of our politics anywhere in the United States, we see that compromise is really essential to getting anything big and substantial done. So, I think what I would say is, Governor Rauner, Speaker Madigan, they need to sit down and they need to start acting like civilized human beings and adults and going face to face and working out the tough issues of our state, whether that means, some of the issues that Governor Rauner wants addressed that are being called sort of non-budgetary issues, or Governor Rauner hearing out Speaker Madigan and saying, look, I can understand where you're coming from, but we've been having nothing but a clash for these past 7 months now, and nothing's getting done, and it's hurting people. People are being hurt by this entire process. So I would just say that really all these issues need to be on the table. And I think, given the capacity of both gentlemen, there should be a way for them to come out with a budget and come out with some sensible reforms that are going to move our state forward and are not going to hurt the middle class.
Okay, and one other issue that's come up in your race, this just came up on November 30th after you filed your petitions. You said that suddenly two other Democratic challengers filed at the same time. You are contesting the other two Democrats who are on the ballot. Is there any progress in that? Can you tell us a little bit about how that all happened and what was your strategy? I think you waited until the very last minute, or you thought was the last minute, to file your petitions.
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
And I had tried to time it so that I could get on the ballot with just Mr. Madigan and myself. However, as I was in Springfield, just prior to the deadline, within say 15 or 16 minutes, Mr. Shaw DeCremer was there, one of Mr. Madigan's assistants, and recognized me, and immediately grabbed a file box, went out of the room, made a phone call, and I watched what was going on, and there were some other assistants there that pulled two petitions out of the file box, prepared them, and walked in and filed right behind me. And I knew from many of my circulators while I was getting signatures that they were preparing other people to run against me. They were preparing petitions of straw candidates that would specifically be designed to take votes away from me on the ballot. I had a feeling this was coming, but it's very funny how they were put in right on the ballot immediately after I filed.
Mm-hmm. And will that be, obviously you're trying now, or your lawyer is trying to get them removed from the ballot. If there ends up being 4 Democratic candidates, you, Michael Madigan, and the other two on the ballot, is it going to significantly hurt your chances?
Well, yes, you're right about the first part. We have filed an objection. There have been some community members that have filed an objection to these two candidates being placed on the ballot. We are confident that we will prevail in that struggle to get them removed. But even if we don't, you should know that we're going to run a very positive campaign and a very effective campaign that will neutralize the effect that these two straw candidates have on this race. If we look in the past, these candidates tend to take anywhere between a few hundred votes to just under 1,000 votes. And, they really don't do a lot of damage. But, they do tend to take some votes. I would also think that some of those voters would be subtracted from Mr. Madigan's totals as well, if people were to vote for these two straw candidates. I don't see it being a problem. I don't see it, causing us to substantially lose numbers that would, be critical in losing the election. I think that people are going to know who I am. They're going to know what I bring to the table. They're going to know what I hope to do for the district and how I'm going to help solve problems to move the district forward. That's the most important thing. And when they hear that there's a candidate out there who's going to, help make change and do something for the district, I think they're going to be very enthusiastic and want to come out and vote for that person.
Okay. And one final question. You are running in the super PAC era, and right now in Illinois, there are a couple of independent expenditure political action committees. One which is the Turnaround Committee, which is controlled by Governor Rauner, ostensibly to help Republican candidates. And there's another one called Illinois Go, which is it supports, I believe their mission is Democratic incumbents. But I wonder, I know you can't coordinate with these independent committees, but do you anticipate that they might come into this race and make it more competitive maybe from a financial standpoint, from an advertising standpoint?
Well, I can't comment because I don't know what their motivations are or what they plan on doing. But we would hope that anybody who wants to bring about change in Illinois, at this critical point in time where we really are on a downward spiral, and we really do have to start to solve problems in our state, would get involved in this campaign. I mean, we're about change. I'm about change. I'm a change manager. I'm an innovation consultant. That's what I do. I drive innovation and change in public and private sectors. So, I'm hoping that anyone that wants to be, to have change and promote good governance in Illinois, will work for that. I can't comment on Illinois Go because I don't know, what they're going to do. I haven't had any, indication from them that they would be supporting my campaign. I haven't had any indications from, anyone else likewise. So I would just hope that, given what's at stake in our state right now, that the right people would get involved, and we need support. We definitely need support here, and we believe we're going to get that.
Well, Jason Gonzales, thank you very much for joining us on Only in Illinois. We wish you the best of luck as you take on what is going to be obviously a big challenge. And thanks for tuning in to another edition of Only in Illinois. We will see you next week.
Thanks, Matt.